And then Omicron hit, and we had an extended closure over Christmas, and we've just reopened on January 25th. So we're in a recovery mode. And so our financial cushion that we had prior to COVID days was quite comfortable and reassuring, but it's quite deflated right now. And the reason for that is because during the closure, the 15-month closure, we kept our staff on. And of course, we had ongoing expenses and very, very low revenue. So our nest egg is a little depleted right now. And what we have on our books is an elevator fund. These are frozen funds or designated funds for our share of the elevator renovations. And what we're asking for tonight is a waiver on the commitment that we made to pay part of the elevator renovations. So that's the point. I understand you've got an understanding as well that we will fulfill that commitment, and that's on your books as well. So what we want to see is we want to unfreeze this $15,000 that we have on our books so that we can use it for operational necessities and go forward from that as part of our recovery plan.
If I can just put this down a bit. Can you hear me? My name is Susan Torsdal, and I'm the Vice President on the Stair Senior Center Board. And I too want to thank Mayor and Council for the opportunity to present this evening, to send a brief delegation, and also to recognize both Andrew and Jordan. As you know, the Stair Senior Center is owned by the town. That building is owned by the town of Comox. And you entrusted to us to run as a senior center, and we're very thankful for that. And from my perspective, it's a real win-win partnership because it gives us a lovely facility for our seniors, and it also serves the town in the sense of a growing gray, as I display, part of the community, which is growing. And so it's a very nice partnership, and we'll value that. Repair costs for the elevator is a capital cost. And what we're hoping is that as a landlord, the town will absorb those costs, which is to the tune of $15,000. And the elevator is not a nice to have feature of the stair. We have seniors who are very fit and can go up and down those stairs with no problem. But we also have seniors who are in wheelchairs, they are using walkers, they have canes, and the stairs are not an option for them, nor can they use the railing on the stairs. It's just not going to happen. And so it's really a mobility issue. This is what it is. And I don't know of a senior center that's on 2 floors that wouldn't have an elevator that works properly. So when we made an appeal to the town to fundraise for the elevator to the tune of $15,000, we did not anticipate COVID, as I'm sure none of you did. But it played havoc with our operation as well as our budget. It really hit us hard. It's also very important to realize that we only have 2 employees at the Stair Center, our cook and a part-time janitor. The rest is run by volunteers. So we did our best to keep our employees going. And if it wasn't for the Canadian federal program that subsidized employees for employers, I don't think we would have been able to open our doors. I think we'd have been closed, period. Also, with COVID, our seniors have been well without activities physical activities as well as a social gathering place for some time. That's very important. It's almost more important than the physical activities because they come, many of them, to have lunch every day, visit with their friends. These are a lot of seniors who are alone or couples that are alone with no family. It's a real social gathering place. It's very important for their mental health. Very important. So we're really hoping that the town will see its way to forgive the 15,000. It would go a long way to getting our membership back up into activities, and also it would make a big difference, we believe, for their mental health. Thank you, and I guess if there's questions.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond and Susan. So any questions for council? Council opinions?
Yeah, thanks to you both for presenting. I think you've brought up some very good points on kind of the importance of reestablishing the health and wellness on activities and that social gathering place. So I think all the points that were made were very important ones to that decision. So I'm just wondering what is it 50, 55 or 60 with your membership group for age of membership?
A membership right now is $35 per person per year.
What is I'm just curious what the age for members attending, like as far as
we really don't know because when they fill out their members, we don't know. But I would say the average age is probably 65, 70.
What's the required required age?
Oh, okay. Pardon me, 50 years old. 50 plus.
Okay. I know that's yeah, no, you'd be surprised. Just looking at kind of the membership base, there's such an opportunity for you guys to grow in the reestablishment. And so I think the funds for that type of you being able to do that and promote to, of course, there's more than 800 people in the valley that would be welcoming to come in and use services. So I was curious what that age was. So 50.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. That was great.
Right. Thanks. Any other questions from council?
I was just going to suggest, I think the elevator's already in, is it not?
Yes.
And it's operating and
Yes.
and working well?
Yes.
It's working very well. Thank
So
you.
somebody has to pay for it.
Yes.
So I was just going to suggest that maybe we just refer this to the budget process and we can deal with it at that point.
Yeah. And it did come in quite a bit under original cost. We're looking at about 100,000 and then it came in at.
Yeah, originally the cost estimates way back in early 2020 was around 80 to 100,000. And we had a company out of Victoria, Arcadia Elevators, that came in, inspected the elevator, and found that the shaft and the hydraulics were in good shape. They were salvageable, and really what needed to be done was the electronic control system. And that brought the cost down, or cost estimate of that repair around 40,000, under 40,000. So when we came to council and committed to raise 15,000 of the 100,000, well, it came down to 40 as a result of finding a suitable contractor. So as such, the 15,000 really was really not necessarily needed.
Right. Thanks. Yeah, and it was a good reminder from you that it is a capital cost that you're a tenant of the building. So, well, thank you very much. And seeing no further questions of council, we will
move that we refer to budget.
second that.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so we'll move that to the operational budget. Thank you very much, Susan and Raymond. We'll see you on the 22nd, I think. And CAO, do we have the other delegations lined up? So we'll go back in order. We'll have Will Hatch and the Comox Youth Climate Council. And Will and company, after your presentation and then after council has questions from you when you're done, if I could just ask you to move off of this and then go, and if you like, monitor the rest of the program through the YouTube channel. It just makes it easier for the IT end on this side. All right, so I'll give you 10 minutes and then there'll be questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us. Before we get started, I'd just like to ask, should we be sharing our screen and thus our presentation through Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me one moment to do that then. Okay, so again, thank you so much for having us. We are all very happy to be here. This is our case for a Comox Valley Green New Deal. So about us, we are the Comox Youth Climate Council, CYCC. We are a group of 13 to 25-year-old youth dedicated to effective and meaningful climate action on a local level. Our Green New Deal, in brief, is a set of concrete community policies verified by West Coast environmental law and intended for climate and social justice policies. So locally, this means not only providing a sustainable future for our valley, but improving the quality of life for as many citizens as we possibly can. And it should be noted that we strongly believe if our municipalities, if Comox can demonstrate the implementation of these policies successfully, we can show federal, other municipalities, and provincial governments that we are ready for change. So now I pass it on to Vivi to present the issues.
All right, so this is part one, and these are the issues. Next slide. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has told us that we need to cut our emissions in half by 2030 and net zero by 2050. Solving climate change will require massive change. So we will be transitioning into a very new world, and a big emphasis of the Green New Deal is having a just transition. So this means we must not leave anyone behind. We have already seen the effects locally of climate change, such as the wildfires, the heat waves, and the flooding. So climate change intersects with many other issues. So it's not a single issue. So this means we must tackle it from all angles and solve issues such as inequity at the same time. Climate change disproportionately affects many people who are already victims of discrimination or other societal barriers. So we have a unique opportunity to make positive societal change as we're tackling climate change. Now I'll pass it on to Willow.
Thank you, Vivi. So this is part two, our current response. So individual action is limited. Although individual actions such as riding bikes, carpooling, and making eco-friendly power choices are a good way of reducing our ecological imprints, they can be expensive or inaccessible for many citizens. A town has more resources and power to justly enforce methods of action. Next slide. Working with what we have. The Comox Climate Action Charter lays a foundational guideline for change, but is lacking in strategy. We can potentially build up from those core ideas to create a comprehensive plan that leaves nobody behind. Next slide. So where are we now? As we proceed with climate change, there are three critical questions we must ask ourselves. One, are we prepared for the climate emergency? i.e., do we have cooling centers and fire evacuation plans in case of fires? Two, are our policies enough? Are they currently working at lowering and mitigating the climate crisis? And three, have we reduced our emissions sufficiently? A question that everybody here knows the answer to. No. Thank you. Now I will pass it on to Ella.
Thank you, Willow. For some reason, I don't think my video camera works. Can everybody hear me okay, though?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our Green New Deal was created for the Comox Valley as a whole, so there may be some resolutions that are not applicable to Comox. The CYCC presented to the Comox Valley Regional District, the City of Courtney, and the Village of Cumberland with an overall positive response. We hope that the town of Comox will collaborate with these municipalities to achieve as many of the recommendations of the Green New Deal as possible. Included in our Green New Deal is a recommendation that you declare a state of climate emergency and develop a new climate emergency plan, that you set an emissions target of a 50% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050, that you review existing official community plans to incorporate the recommendations, and that you support an equitable transformation rooted in climate justice, respect of Indigenous peoples, and that creates sustainable jobs. Our Green New Deal contains a broad range of topics. This is important as many topics such as Indigenous rights and equity and justice are very connected to climate change. They must be addressed at the same time so that as we change our community to mitigate and adapt to climate change, we do it in a fair and equitable way. Our Green New Deal includes the following categories: emissions targets, low carbon jobs. Ensuring that there are good low carbon jobs in the Comox Valley will make sure that we have a just transition. Indigenous rights, equity and justice, land use and development, governance process, zero waste, transit and transportation, energy and electricity, drinking water and wastewater, food security. This is very important as food security on Vancouver Island is at risk due to climate change. Health. We must make sure everyone has access to health services, especially with the effects of climate change becoming more damaging to our health. Carbon sinks and biodiversity. Revenue generation. This section is some ideas on how to fund the initiatives proposed in the document. And climate adaptation. We've already seen the impacts of climate change here in the Comox Valley, such as heat waves, reduced snowpacks, melting glaciers, and more. Climate adaptation is very important because even if we make big changes, climate change will still affect Comox. We must prepare for those impacts to keep our community safe. And now to Ava for our asks.
Okay, so part 4 is our asks. So our first ask is that you declare a climate state of emergency, because the situation that we're in today is an emergency. Our lives and the lives of all future generations depend on the actions that leaders such as yourselves take today to stop the climate crisis from worsening any further. The second ask is something we've already gone over in this presentation. We ask that you set an emissions target of at least a 50% reduction in emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2050. In order to have a 50% chance of keeping global temperature levels from rising more than 1.5 degrees, we must hit these targets. A 1.5 degree or more increase in global average temperature would have devastating effects for all life on Earth. Action must be taken now to ensure that we keep temperature rise to a safe level. Our third ask is that you conduct a review of the Green New Deal to determine feasibility of policies. We wrote this document with the entire Comox Valley in mind, and with this we realized that not all policies will be feasible to implement into the Comox municipality. However, there are still many policies that we believe you can implement in Comox, which will help to improve the climate resiliency of our community. This leads us to our fourth ask, which is that you work with us and the other municipalities to implement our recommendations at a regional level. As some of the policies in the Green New Deal were written with the entire valley in mind, we hope you'll work with us and other municipalities to implement some of the policies that will require collaboration. We are very open to any future feedback and questions that you may have, and would love to discuss any policies that need to be modified in the future. So this photo you see here is from when we presented our Green New Deal to the CVRD. This is just kind of their analysis of our document and our policies, them deciding what's already being implemented, what they can implement, and what's not within their jurisdiction. Next slide. So we'd like to end by acknowledging that the Comox Youth Climate Council gathers, works, and grows on the unceded homelands of the Comox First Nation. The CRCC is deeply grateful for the Comox First Nation's present and ancestral care of the land and waters, and we recognize our responsibility to support the efforts to decolonize and return these lands to their original stewards. Thank you so much for having us today. We are now open for questions.
Great, thank you. And questions from council? Councillor Kerr.
Well, I just want to make more of a comment. A big thank you to Will, Vivian, Ella, Willow, and Ava, and the rest of your team. It's a really great presentation, very succinct and lots of information for us to consider. You give us a lot of hope hearing from our leaders of tomorrow, but really the 5 of you are leaders today, and the rest of your team showing us leadership in our community for all the activities that you've done. So I do have a notice of motion prepared with respect to the Green New Deal for later in the meeting. So stay tuned if you can on the YouTube channel for that. And I look forward to speaking more about this topic very soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McGowan and then the minutes.
Hi, yeah, I've got a fairly similar tone to Councillor Kerr. I just wanted to say thank you so much. You're putting in all this work and time and effort, and I'm just so sorry that it's fallen on another generation of shoulders of the youth that you guys have to do this. But this year alone has made it a lot clearer the need for immediate action. So yeah, just keep making noise. You're appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Minions.
Yeah, thanks. I just had a quick question, and kudos to your team. I've definitely read about, in the record with the presentations that you're making, and looking through the resolutions that you guys have on your website. They're very well thought out, and it's great to have, actual actions being suggested, some being feasible and some being a little more challenging at this time. We did make a motion of climate emergency crisis, although I think we used the word crisis back in 2019. And I think, unfortunately, we got a little bit sidetracked with the pandemic, which what we've seen from the past year is, being sidetracked doesn't stop some of the climate adaptation that's needed from happening. So I think this year we're starting to get back on track. We're going to have a climate open house in June. We're going to have a strategic meeting about emergency planning. So I think the topic is really coming back this year, which is really needed, but we did get a bit sidetracked because of what was going on globally. I'm just curious if you have talked to the local MLAs, MPs, Minister Environment, or kind of at a provincial or federal political representation, if you've had any meetings at that level with our local representatives. So just a question back to you.
I'm happy to answer that one. So we have had some conversations with MLA Ronald Ray Leonard and Gord Johns, MP Gord Johns. And although we have not talked about our Green New Deal specifically with them, they have been somewhat engaged with our group and with our ideas. So maybe in the future, we certainly can present similar things on a federal and provincial level to them. And also one note that can be added to that, I can't remember the exact name, but the Comox Valley Regional District is intending to pass this on to a group of municipalities, the organization that overruns them all throughout Canada. Perhaps someone can help me with the name, but that is the intention. I guess that's it.
FCM?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
The FCM, I believe.
Yeah, which stands for, well, UBCM is Union of British Columbia Municipalities. So, and what's FCM is federal. Yeah, there you go.
Just a quick follow-up. Yeah, I would encourage Rachel Blaney, which is our MP for kind of Comox and North, is always open to speaking with groups. So I think because you have all the information laid out, it never hurts to kind of go to every door out there and make that noise. And then the Minister of Environment, George Heyman, if you could have a chance, would be a great thing for your provincial kind of conversation. So thank you.
Any other questions from council? I'm just wondering, like with, this is not just isolated to Comox Valley. This is a provincial, a Canadian, really it's a movement around the globe. So your colleagues throughout other municipalities, are you hearing anything from them as they approach municipalities? Are you making any traction with these at the municipal level? Maybe to Will?
Sure. So I know Courtney at the time we presented with them. I wasn't there. So it's Lister and Ben and maybe Marie, but they were implementing their OCP at the time. So the intention was to factor that into the OCP.
Right.
Then
but
with
other provinces, are you in dialogue with any other groups in other provinces across Canada that are doing a similar thing? Because this is not just a Comox Valley initiative. This is a pretty much an international initiative. Am I correct on that?
I mean, in general, it is, but for our intention, it is entirely to implement policies on a local scale.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So seeing no further questions, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. And Councillor Kerr will have a notice of motion a little later on, so you'll be able to hear that on the YouTube channel. So if you don't mind just clicking off for now, appreciate it. And thanks again for coming out. Okay, so we'll move on to the Providence Living, and we have a delegation. We have Chris here, and then is there another group on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Chris, welcome, and you'll have 10 minutes and update us. Great.
Well,
Let us know how things are going.
Thank you very much. And really, again, appreciate this opportunity to update you on our views redevelopment. All the reports I get are that it remains a really collaborative partnership with the town. And for that, we're very grateful. So thank you. Since last time we reported to you, our former CEO, Jane Murphy, has retired. She's in Florida as we speak. So I'd like to introduce you to our new CEO and president, Candace Chartier, who's got her hand waving there, and together with her team, who will be presenting today, Sharon Parks, who's our executive director of operations. You find her at the views. Art Reitmeyer of Field and Martin, he's reported to you beforehand at previous meetings. And Trudy Butel, who's our communications specialist, and she'll tell us what to say. And that's Mike Woods, our executive assistant on the bottom left-hand corner. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to them. Thank you.
You're on mute.
Is that better?
Yeah, there we go.
How's that? So thank you very much. Thank you all, and thank you, Chris, for the introduction. We really were excited to come and speak to you today. Mike is going to just walk us through a quick presentation. I'm just going to lead it off, and then I'm going to flip it over to Sharon and Art, just to give you a really good grasp of what it is that we're doing and where we're at with this really exciting project for the Comox redevelopment. So we'll go to the next slide, Mike. So if you think about it, there's a huge need to reinvent seniors care. The past 2 years with the arrival of COVID-19 has shone such a spotlight on just how urgent the need is to reinvent and rethink the way we provide care to a largely frail and very elderly population. So I want you to consider this. In 1966, when the Medicare insurance plan was created, Canada's population was 2 million people. The average age was 23 and the life expectancy was 70 years old. In 2022, Canada's population is 38 million. The average age is 41 with a life expectancy of 80. All those years ago when the Canada Health Act was created, seniors care wasn't considered because on average, people didn't live long enough to need it. So you look at today. So for the first time in history, and this has been for the last couple of years, there are now more people in Canada over the age of 65 than there are children under the age of 14. In BC alone, the number of seniors is expected to reach 1.6 million by 2036. The current model of care, the institutional model we call it, does not meet the complex needs of the aging population living with dementia and/or other related illnesses. So seniors care needs a reinvention, and Providence Living is bringing that new style of long-term care to Comox. So we can go to the next slide, Mike. So Providence Living has been mandated by Providence Healthcare to reimagine seniors care. We will do this by harnessing global innovation and then melding them with the needs and the wants of seniors and their families. Moving from that institutional model to that more social model of care is integral. Providence Living Place, Together by the Sea, will dramatically shift the way seniors live in long-term care settings in BC, and specifically in what we're doing in the Comox Valley. So the Providence difference lies in the fact that we will provide a social rather than a institutional model of care. And with that, I'm going to go to the next slide, Mike, but I'm going to hand it over to Sharon.
Hello and good evening. Yeah, so Providence Living, as we're calling it, Providence Living Place Together by the Sea, is creating a new model of care based on the concepts of the dementia village. The slide in front of you has what we call the 7 pillars, which are based on a concept that comes from the Netherlands, which is being classified as the gold standard for seniors care. And the model is based on a village called De Hogewey. And as I said, they're considered the gold standard for long-term care. What you'll see is what we're trying to achieve with our new model of care is allowing elderly or seniors to have a day well lived and to live the day that they want to live. The institutional model, the way it is at the moment, is very task orientated. And what it means is that we do to residents, the staff do to residents every day, rather than the residents really having a voice in what they want their day to look like. So what we're hoping, building on the model from the De Hogewey concept, is to look at the surroundings and make them more favorable to them, to make them more recognizable, to make the surroundings less like a hospital or institution, to make them look like more like their house, like a household. We're looking at different lifestyles. We've thought about how we would try and allow residents to maybe live with other residents that have similar preferences and interests and values. This might be tricky, but that's one of the goals that we would like to look at. The institution model really just looks at health. It doesn't really look at the spiritual and the mental and emotional well-being of the person. And so this new model will look at that. We really want to focus in on life's pleasures and making life normal for them. And so the institutional model takes everything away from residents. They're no longer involved in cooking or choosing their meals or deciding what they're going to do for the rest of their day. And so what we want to do is have a place where people can actually choose the meals that they want to eat. They can actually help prepare the meals if they want to prepare them. They can help with their laundry, and they can actually live what we would consider probably a normal day for us. And this obviously, it would depend on whether they have the capability to do that. We really want to bring the community into our new village. And so we're looking at ways that we can do that. So we obviously have got room for a daycare, and so we can bring the youth into our village. We also have a concept of a bistro and a cafe and a grocery store where people can do some normal activities that they would do during their day. And then we're looking at sort of social inclusion, and so hoping that we can open our facility up to the community and the neighborhoods to be able to share the amenities. We'll have a beautiful community hall where we'll be able to maybe hold concerts or events that everybody from the community can join in. And at that, I'm going to pass it. I think I'm passing it back to Candice.
Oh, the mute button. The famous mute button. So when you look at this slide, when completed in 2024, Providence Living Place Together by the Sea will be a community of care where seniors can age in place on a single site. So an approved $53 million replacement of the current views, with a 156-bed long-term care home based on the concepts of a dementia village. And this is the first such publicly funded facility in BC. So we're really excited about that. It will feature 156 publicly funded long-term care beds, including 8 respite beds, organized into small, self-contained households of 12 private rooms, bathroom, and supporting the privacy and heightened infection control in a modern space. So the design supports the philosophy of care that promotes freedom of movement, which is so essential. Safe access to the outdoors in a secure environment. You can see by looking at the visual on the screen. that, you know, you've got that secure interior courtyard. You're providing residents opportunities to enjoy that therapeutic quality of nature. You can also see there's an Indigenous ceremonial space in collaboration with the Comox First Nation, a chapel gardens, a bistro, a children's daycare, a community space, a village store, and a bistro will also exist on site. So the site preparation began in December with the demolition of the former St. Joseph's Hospital emergency department and entrance that's now come down. We expect to break ground on the actual project in 2 months' time, March 2022, and development of the master site plan for the entirety of the 14 acres will begin later this year. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Art Rietmeyer, our development consultant, who's been absolutely integral in as a member of our team and at the town of Comox to bring this project to fruition. So Art, I'm passing it over to you.
Thanks, Candace. Mayor and Council, take comfort. This isn't a visual of a structural failure of the new build, but rather the first step in our reconstruction process. As Candace alluded, we needed to remove a section of the former hospital, the ambulatory care section, which was on the northernmost portion. It's about 15,000 square feet or 1,460 square meters that jutted into the property that'll be part of the development. That section was built in 1996. And we began demolition by removing some of the interior pieces in fall of 2021. It'll be completed with reinstatement of a wall back to its former location in March of 2022 as we move into the construction of the new care home. Next slide, please. This visual here is of the entrance, the porte cochere to the building, and above it, you can see the deck. That's part of the bistro, and it'll be an area where families can bring their family members that are in resident and come out and enjoy a view to the south, because that'll be looking over the water, as we've indicated previously. And it's also the entrance into the parking. The overall site, the St. Joseph site, is about 15.3 acres. 11.7 of it is developable, and 3.2 acres of that will be utilized by this development, which is quite large. It's much more of a horizontal care home development to allow residents that free motion that Candace spoke of earlier. The total build of the care home is 11,400 square meters or 123,000 square feet. We're going to plan for 84 spaces. 73 of them will be on site. 11 of them will be on Providence Living's site as well, but on the adjacent property, and that's being put in place through a covenant. So there'll be a total of 84 parking stalls provided for the new care home build. Next slide, please. This visual is to give you a bit more of an idea of what's happening in the interior. So this interior courtyard, often in care home developments, you basically have a walking loop and a small area for individuals to come out and spend some time with their family members. This one is actually 0.8 of an acre. It's quite a large interior space. And as Candace indicated, it's secure because the perimeter is really the resident buildings, as you can see outlined around the perimeter. The interior space is designed to allow residents to wander freely. They can access services through the bistro area, which is over to your left or to the right of the visual. And there's lots of gardens through the center. There's spiritual center for First Nations, sacred space. There's 2 gazebos, one that's just a quiet area off to the left that's sitting in what will be a forested area. There'll be quite a few trees in that section. And then there's the other gazebo over to the top of the slide, which will also have some cooking facilities for outdoor engagements with residents. There's that yellow section off to the right, that's a playground for children, so that when families come to visit residents, they can spend time, not just as you have in a traditional care home again, where you would have individuals come, walk a loop, sit on a bench, and that would be it. This is really designed to be almost like a park. They can spend the day, picnic on site,
spend time with their family members, engaging at a whole different level. So this entire interior development is quite extensive in terms of green space, play space, and engagement space for members. Outside, they'll be able to play in the summer, and the integration between the bistro and the exterior space will be facilitated by doors that will open quite wide when you get into season. Next slide, please. In terms of timing, as Chris said earlier in the introduction, we've been working extensively with the team, your staff team in Comox, who have been great and engaged us on a regular basis, continual basis, and a frequent basis, very accessible, and it's much appreciated. It's made our job a lot easier. Our team for the design and development came together in the summer of 2020. Since that point in time, we've been working with a lot of different initiatives, getting the design of the building put in place, a lot of testing, obviously geotechnical, and then starting to work through submissions. We're right now in the final stages of that, hopefully working through with getting our building permit and then our subdivision, which is necessary to parse off the parcel that will be the care home. There's a road exchange agreement. I believe that's part of the agenda even that has been worked out in terms of facilitating the roundabout up in the corner of Rodello and Comox. And there's also a road that then is part of Comox that comes into the site. So that's part of the road exchange. There's also waterfront walkway dedication. There's a park that's being a part of the dedication to the top of slope for residents of broader Comox to come out and enjoy the visage. And then there's some road widening provisions as well that are all part of what's everybody's been working to get completed so that we can get the project construction underway. And we should be basically project complete in 2024. As Candace said, we're starting in March 2022, hoping to actually begin in-ground excavation mid-March, site scrubbing early March, and mobilization March 1. So lots to get done, but it's been, like I say, a pleasure working with your team in Comox. They've been assisting us all the way, and we couldn't do it without them. So thank you very much. That completes the presentation, and I guess turn it over for questions. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions from council? Council McGowan.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. It really sounds like it's going to be a really amazing place. One comment and one question. I just wanted to say the place for children to be entertained is most likely a game changer for a lot of families. I know I have multiple loved ones in long-term care, and it's always a struggle trying to visit for any length of time when you have small ones around. So that I'm sure will be a wonderful and appreciated addition. But my question was, when you mentioned grouping individuals by lifestyle, I'm wondering what that might look like.
Sorry, just trying to find the mute button. Oh, am I unmuted? I'm unmuted, there you go. Yeah, it's something that we are looking at in the Dahugaway model. They have been successful. They have a survey that people fill in, sort of talking about their likes and their dislikes, and then they actually have built the households around different concepts. So if somebody is more of a sports person, it's more of a sports environment, and the things that they do are much more sports orientated. Maybe someone is spent their whole life working and then coming home and reading the newspaper or watching TV, and so they've developed these lifestyles, and so it's something that we're looking into. I think it would be challenging with the system we have here provincially, and how residents actually are allocated to come to the views, because we don't get to choose who comes to the views. It's they get to choose who comes here, and we only have certain beds and certain places available. So I think it will be challenging to do it exactly like the Dahugaway model is, but it's something that I think is worth looking at, because if you think about myself, I have people that I have interests with, and I have friendships with, and there's other people that I might not want to be living with and spending my whole life with. And so I think it's an important concept to look at, but I'm not sure how it's going to completely play out at the moment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Bissinger.
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. It's nice to see the progress. I'm not sure if maybe this is a question for Art or Candace, but I know at some point, I think it was for the hospital board, there was a presentation that sort of showed the overall master site plan for the site. And I was just curious, like, if you have any idea of what the final build out or like the number of people that would be living at the site might be, a number of like total cars in the end. I think I had seen something that had, sort of transitional housing with condos that you sort of age in place or something that wasn't just the long-term care that's being built right now. I think it was like the whole, 11 acres being developed. So I don't know if that's something you might be able to share with council just for more of like long-term planning and roundabout.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We actually have been very busy around this piece, and Art, you can jump in when I'm done, but I think that, strategically we have met as a board, as a team, and looked at, okay, so what are the next steps? What are the needs of the community? I've met with different stakeholders. I've met with, key people in the community to try to gauge, what is it that community needs? How can we be that solution and that partner in what those needs are? And we're just actually coming back together as a board and as a group, and Art's going to be a part of that to look at, what does that master site plan look like? And, what are the key things that we need to do to meet the needs of the community? So we're just right in the midst of that process.
And that was a great answer and nothing to add.
Yeah. Councilor Minions and then Swift.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Just a really quick question with the dementia village side of things, which is the phase we're looking at now. Is that a one-person model, or is it something where you potentially would have like couples or two people in a room based on family lifestyle, or is it very kind of strict to one person based on the dementia village model?
I can answer that. We do have the availability for couples to live together in this building. There are, I believe there's four double rooms, and so they're sort of a bit like when you go to a hotel and you have the adjoining door between two rooms. And so we have the ability for a couple to live together, either with either sleeping in the same room and having the other room as their living room, or actually just living next door to each other in single rooms. So we do have that option.
Thank you. Councillor Swift.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. It's an amazing, we're very lucky to be having such a facility come to our valley, and know it's long overdue and much needed. I did hear you mention childcare, and I do notice your playground, and I'm wondering if child care facility is going to be part of the development of your project.
I can answer that if it's okay. There's two parts. So what you saw in the visual of the courtyard is one child play area, and that's really to try and engage with the broader community of the courtyard and everything. But there's also there is a childcare space on the first level, and that will accommodate 32 spaces. And there is a separate play area there as well, specifically designed to accommodate the childcare. And the idea would be that we would encourage them to come into the care home as well, up into the courtyard, to try and create more of that multi-generational interaction on an ongoing basis. And there's been discussions with the operator that type of interaction would be encouraged and facilitated.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to add to that, we've been looking at intergenerational programming, and I've talked to the Bishop Gordon around this, and looking at even educational programs and how we intertwine that intergenerational program above and beyond what's historically been in place right now. And, maybe even doing programs on site that can be part of that, to take that intergenerational aspect to the next degree than what's been historically done. So it's very exciting.
Great. And just to confirm that the daycare, it's a community-wide daycare. It's not just for the grandkids of the residents there. Anybody can apply to put their kids in there.
Yes,
that's great.
absolutely.
Perfect. Any other questions? Seeing none, folks, thank you very much again for coming to present to us. It's always good to get updates on this, and yeah, thanks for having your trust in Comox to move this forward. Appreciate it. Chris, thank you very much.
We're very excited, and we really thank you for the time you afforded us today. And it's going to be the first publicly funded dementia concept village in Canada. So we're very glad to be working with you on this.
Yeah,
so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye. Okay, and then we will ask you folks to zoom off, and if you happen to want to watch the rest, you just do it on the YouTube. So. Okay, so we'll move on to adoption of the regular council meeting minutes from January 19th.
Second.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. And we will move on to the consent agenda.
Second.
And do we have anyone wanting to pull out? Councillor Grant.
We pull out two.
Two.
Just
Okay.
for a comment more than anything.
Yeah, so that was moved in second. So yeah, comment on two.
I just, I think this is a really good initiative. We were starting to get quite a few derelict boats kicking around, and I think this is just a really good thing. And I'm not really sure where it goes from here. I know it's probably a provincial issue as much as anything, but it becomes a big problem in a lot of communities. So I just want to thank these guys for taking that on.
Yeah, I think it's a federal program. CAO, am I correct on that? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and any other Councillor Minions and then McGowan.
I just want to pull out number 4 quickly with the Brooklyn parking.
Number 4, so move second on that one. Okay, and for discussion.
I also want to kudos for someone sending in a positive letter. That's very nice. Nice to read a positive letter. For the Brooklyn Elementary School, I just did a really quick drive past there. I'm just wondering what our general policy. It seems like all school zones are chaotic at those hours, not just that one. So to address one versus think about them all. Does the school district ever get involved on making recommendations of what they see as reasonable, or is it really just go to traffic kind of reports? And it's an issue in every single drop off. I live in one of those areas. I mean, every drop off area is chaotic, but it is unsafe. And so I'm wondering how we make rules if it's school district or traffic report, etc.
This was something that was brought to, so in the past we had cars parking, I guess it would be on the south side of the road in the bike lanes. We had a number of complaints coming from parents saying that it's unsafe because we have people loading, unloading, you're pushing bikes that are coming through onto the road. And we talked with the school about it. Now, I'm hesitant to say that school has taken an official position, but I would say working with the administrator there that they would like to see the work that we've done, which is to clear that area out from cars. There is significant opportunities for parents to drop their kids off simply going through the Crescent area. You can drop off. I know when I do it myself, now my son's a little bit older, but we can go and you kind of do that roll and stop and you kick out and keep going, right?
I think they call that tuck and roll.
Yeah. We understand that for some of the younger kids that go to the school, that's probably not doable. There's a number of parking spots available there. There's a number of parking areas available within where parents are going to have to get out and walk. There are a lot of options to do this safely. It's just not a lot of options that people like. They would like to be able to stop right in front of the school, walk the minimum distance possible. All of the schools or the entire catchment area for Brooklyn is meant to be a walkable distance. So that's one of the things that the school says, that most everybody should be able to walk there, which is why they don't provide buses. And the other options are that you can come through, you can do the drop off, there's parking spots available, or you may have to get out and just walk a block.
Okay, so just to follow up, the suggestion of making parking spots would actually also be quite unsafe. So it's the way it's set up now is the safest option from the staff's perspective.
I would say so.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And then as far as other school zones, we haven't been approached to clear out illegal parking in the other areas. If we did start to get that kind of request coming from the public, coming from the parents that are going to the schools and coming from the schools themselves, we would do a similar program like we did here. So what we did on this one is that we worked with the school, we sent out messages to the parents. We did a good long round of warnings for when people were parking that they weren't getting tickets, and then finally it went to enforcement. And now we have really good compliance, and the area is clear, and it seems to be working out well.
Thank you. We have Councillor McGowan and then Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. I'd like to pull out number 3.
Second.
I'm just trying to find my place again, but basically I just wanted to move that we provide the letter of advocacy for the provincial government to move on this, on covering prescription contraceptive universally.
Do you have a motion that you like? Motion to present that. Are you okay with that, CAO? Motion for that. So do I have a seconder on that?
Second.
Okay, for discussion. This would be for an advocacy role for the town.
Yeah, it's just advocating for health,
Mhm.
for health for
Okay. Councillor Minions.
Yeah, just over to Jordan. Is that something that's very time consuming to have done, or is it a pretty quick letter of advocacy that just goes out?
Yeah, we can just reference the letter that we got and say that we're in support of it.
Okay.
And away we go.
It seems like we send a lot of those on blank years, but they're still good to send, but as long as they're not too time consuming.
Well,
It's a good thing.
squeaky wheel, right? So,
Squeaky wheel.
okay, any other discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, and Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, just going back to number 4, the school parking issue. So my son's at Brooklyn, and I've been participating in as a member of the parking committee, which has been really interesting since the fall. The next meeting is actually next week. If anyone wants to attend by Zoom at 7 p.m. on the 10th. The principal's really taken a great leadership on this, and again working with the town. So that's really kudos to her. There are a couple of major changes proposed in the fall, and this might be a model for other schools to consider as well in town. The one is they've mandated anyone in grade 4 or above is to be dropped off in the periphery. So the little cul-de-sacs and areas like the public works yard up on top there. So that's been good, and that has led to some improvement. So it's just the younger kids, their parents are allowed in and out of the school parking lot. So it's decreased some cars there. And then the other real thing, and we're going to, I think, focus this in the fall is really in the spring, is working on active transportation. So really encouraging more biking, more walking, and even having some schools do what are called walking school buses, where parents will, pick up kids as they go along to and from school. So I think that's a creative option that's being looked at as well. So just wanted to provide that update.
That's great, thanks. Okay, so seeing nothing further on that, we'll move on to the unfinished business, the Comox Parks Use Bylaw Amendment 1881-01-2022. So number 1, first reading. Any questions on that? All in favor? And for second reading?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Carried. Second, okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to bylaw adoptions, that council remuneration bylaw number 1996 be adopted.
Second.
For discussion. All in favor? Opposed? 3 opposed. Carried. Thank you. So we will go to the Comox Street and Traffic Bylaw Amendment number 1358.04.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Under new business, the road allowance closure and dedication removal bylaw amendment. This is regarding, we heard earlier about Providence at 2137 Comox Avenue for first reading.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Carried.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Third. Second.
Slow down a little bit. Okay, So all in favor of third, was it? And that's carried. Thank you. And the exempt staff performance review policy update, that council amend exempt staff performance review policy CCL 057.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Carried. And the council rescind meritorious service pay policy.
Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you. Actually, did anybody have any comments about that? Okay, good. So now we'll go down to notices of motion. Councillor Kerr, I understand you had something for us.
This is just related to the Comox Climate Council's recent delegation and proposal of the Green New Deal policy. And first, I just want to say that I recognize a lot in the document. You know, it'd be really hard for any council, any town, any municipality to do everything in the next year or in the next 5 years. This is really an aspirational document to work towards, and there are probably a few things in there that the town's already doing really well, and others that the town, you know, could probably do this year, and some others that need to be pushed off into the future. But I think certainly it's something that is important to look at. So my notice motion is for an upcoming meeting, and thank you to Jordan for helping me wordsmith this, is that the administration review the Comox Youth Climate Council's proposed Green New Deal policies, provide recommendations to council, and incorporate the analysis into the reporting of the town's green initiatives as part of the upcoming Green Open House.
Okay, so that'll be a notice of motion. So we will bring this up. Yeah. So okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Kerr. Shelley, you got all that? Okay. So correspondence, we have Mark Rutten from CVRD request letter of support for the South Sewer Extension Project.
Second.
Second, any discussion on that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And for the late item, do I have the late item? There it is. Okay. The late item is, yeah, this was something that came in just, well, the other day you saw the email, and then they asked us today if we could do this because they needed to get it in to get the grant by the 11th. So this is that the town of Comox supports the Comox Valley Regional District to apply for, receive, and manage the Stream 2 Poverty Reduction Grant funding on behalf of the Comox Valley Community Health Network.
Can I move that?
Yep, moved. And second, Councillor Swift, was there a question, Councillor Swift, or? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. This came to the board at the regional district last week. That's when we met. Although the initiative was really good, the regional district was feeling overwhelmed and really discouraged this from being supported. Not because it wasn't a good idea, but just because they didn't feel it's supposed to be a flow through, but it never is. There's always work attached to it. It got passed anyway. I don't think there's any point in not supporting it at this point, that we should support it to go ahead because it is going to be applied for and we might as well try and get the money. But just know that the regional district is feeling overwhelmed. So.
Okay.
Thinking further to that too, there's also another big grant coming on this very issue that they were really focusing on. So it wasn't just the grant writing of this that was a problem in staff's mind over there, but also if you do get the money implementing it, they just don't feel that there's capacity there to do it. But it got voted through anyway. So as Maureen said, I think you might as well vote for it and get the most money you can if you're doing it anyway. So
yeah. And CAO, we basically have the background on this, so it's not going to be onerous to our staff to send in a support letter on this, because by adding our support, it ups it by what, another $50,000, I think it was.
Yeah, so the joint community applications can get funded up to 150,000.
Right.
Single application is 50,000, and we don't anticipate any staff involvement beyond the support letter.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder from our directors here about the workload that we are adding on to our staff. And as we're coming to near the end of our term here, they've done a great job in pivoting with all the things coming at them, but they too are human, and I think we're starting to see some things crumble here and there. So well done by all our staff, whether it's Courtney Regional District or the town of Comox. So any other further questions or comments on this? So all in favor of this? And that's carried. Thank you. And yeah, so that was it. We'll go to reports from members of council. And we'll start with Councillor Kerr and then go clockwise.
Okay. So, first I attended a meeting of the Save Our Forest team of Comox Valley, which was interesting to hear their perspective and particularly their comments and concerns about potential Northeast Woods development. So we talked about pros and cons and the environmental impact of that. I attended a really interesting half-day session, decolonization workshop, what it is, why it matters, and facilitated discussion, and really talking about our First Nations neighbors and partners and how to work with them best on this. It was great to attend with Mayor Arnott the blessing of the Affordable Housing Societies project on Balmoral Avenue, and really looking forward to those 52 units for seniors and, of course, for those with disabilities as well. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Councillor Schmidt.
Thank you. Attended the CVRD board meeting, and the CVRD is working with the Comox Valley Search and Rescue to find a permanent location for them. They've been in a rental facility, and it's not clear to me. I don't think they're going for the same facility, but anyways, they want a permanent facility, and so they're researching that. We had a presentation by the BC Assessment Authority, and there was tons of good information in that, but all of it's online, so I'm not going to go over it with you. You'll be very grateful for that. We started the budget process, and through the course of this, they go through each budget item, and $62 million in capital projects at the regional district, and their headcount is for staff. The total headcount is 268, 209 full-time equivalent staff.
That's 268 staff members the regional district has?
Yeah.
And what was the 209?
209 full-time equivalent. So lots of
209
casual,
FTEs. So there's 60 casuals. Yeah.
Yeah. Rec center.
So 209 FTEs.
Yeah. So and they're looking for 9 new positions. Well, stay tuned. We talked about the wood smoke reduction program. There's a report coming. Clean BC Better Homes top up program up to $6,000. $30,000 to the Island Health Community Wellness Grant to be used for this top up. The Food Hub Stewardship Group, they are developing the terms of reference and at the application process for people to apply to be part of this Food Hub group. There were letters of support for Members Bill C-216, which is the expungement of certain drug-related convictions, and the National Strategy on Substance Use Act. There was a support for the Carbon Sense Technologies applying for a grant, and that's for electrifying your home, basically furnace exchanges and things. There was a letter of support given for the ship breaking regulations, for a resolution to go to, regulations for BC and Canada, and a motion to go for the to the AVICC and the FCM
to help get regulations for BC and Canada regarding ship breaking. And I don't know if you saw the newspaper today, but they have, at the regional district, they decided that the operation south of us is not in compliance. So we'll see what happens from there on in. I attended a 911 meeting. The calls are way up due to fires, you know, in BC we're talking about, but also here, fires, weather events, and the opioid crisis. A lot of it, really, the opioid crisis, I think. So there's going to probably be an increase there. I also attended the Filbert board meeting, and with the Heritage Week that's coming up, they did a scavenger hunt that's kind of valley-wide and with the museums and things last year, and they're doing that again this year. Check out the website for details, because they weren't going into many details yet, but you can go on the website, and it takes place for a whole week. So it's something you can do, you know, over a couple of days. But there's some interesting, I didn't do it last year, but it goes from Union Bay to Cumberland to all over the valley. So it could be pretty interesting. And the festival is a go-ahead. There's going to be some changes this year. I would really encourage you to buy a membership. It's $30 for a member, and gets you into the festival. The festival is being altered to just be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to kind of clear the decks for nautical days for the Monday. So that should be an improvement. We're all hoping. And also, I think they're going to extend their hours till maybe 9 o'clock. So that'll be another thing to consider. There's a new producer this year, and they're just finalizing the details of the contract. So we'll see where it goes from there. But in the meantime, get your membership. Thanks.
Well, after all that, all I did was attend the RD board meeting, and that already got reported on, so I'm done.
Okay, next time we'll go counterclockwise, Mark. Councilor Bissinger.
Attended the solid waste board meeting with Councilor Minions, and we went over a financial plan as well, a couple more positions at the landfill, and also the bylaw on adjudication and ticketing passed. And then after that, we had a training on our workshop on territorial acknowledgements, which was pretty interesting, and I shared that to the rest of council too. Attended a workshop on coast rivers and communities, creative solutions for changing times, and as well attended that meeting with a group, Save Our Forest, about the Northeast Comox development, and it seems like not a lot of residents know that that's underway, so they were kind of concerned about that and asking if we could do more media around it or just more public information. Yes.
As Councillor Bissinger mentioned, we had our first waste management meeting of the year. Went to the Vancouver Island Library AGM this past Saturday. They have lots of new things coming. They're removing adult fees, for example. There's now a seed library at the Courtney branch for learning how to farm and garden. And one thing to them is they do have very long board meetings, but they keep coming out with new and creative things at libraries that if you hadn't visited a library, you probably would have no idea. You know, they have virtual reality and seeds and all sorts of things. So they seem to be really evolving with the times on what they offer for people, and it's, you know, included in your taxes. So check out our local library if you haven't recently. I went to a restorative justice meeting where they were just kind of kicking off the year. Their referrals from the RCMP and from the Crown are really down to almost nothing. So it's a rebuild year as far as there should be a lot more restorative justice happening with the calls going up slowly, but there seemed to be a lag of referrals. So they're looking at rebuilding some of those relationships that COVID has seemed to take away some of the referrals there. So a bit concerning, but they're working on it. I talked to that same soft Comox Valley group on the phone about the concerns on mostly tree bylaws being strong enough and stormwater retention planning. So lots of information from our staff to direct people back to, and, you know, the misconception out there that private land ownership doesn't necessarily, you know, it's not a park. So there's two very different streams there that we need to make sure it's still good to keep the public aware of what's happening, but there's not as much that can be done necessarily on privately owned land. So there's a bit of a balance going on there. I'm a big tree hugger, but there's also OCPs and regional growth strategies and all those things that have dictated what people think they can and can't do. So balancing those two hard things out. Just a reminder, coldest night of the year is coming up in 3 weeks. So I think Councillor Bissinger, myself, and Councillor McGowan are signed up currently. So if you're able to make a donation or able to walk, then they're looking to have another really big, great year. Last year was a huge year for them successfully. So that's coming up in 3 weeks, and I'll remind everyone for the next 2 meetings. Thank you.
All right, I attended a Comox Archives and Museum Society board meeting. They are looking at AGM, they're looking at publication of a manuscript and getting things priced out there. With the status right now of COVID, they have been closed, but they are looking at opening as well. And I think they've been open for some appointments and everything. So always a good place to check out. Also attended the meeting with the community members from SOFT. I believe I'll be talking to them again coming up sometime. And I went to a hospital board meeting where Chair Charlie Cornfield and Director Hillian were re-elected as chair and vice chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks. For myself, I had a BIA meeting, and then I sat for about an hour and a half and spoke with the community radio folks here on Comox Ave. We did a show, talked about where we are in the town, where we're going, and that type of thing. And it's actually really nice to have that rate in our community, and we can talk about local things like that. I did talk with a couple, some developers, residents, and those always take a varied path on those. So won't get too much into them. With Councillor Kerr, I guess I'll call him Dr. Kerr at this one, and the CAO, we did the physician task force. I don't think that was after our last meeting. So yeah, we had that, and that was really good. And I think we have another one coming up in a week and a half, 18th. Okay, yeah. So those are good, and just to get enlightened on that. I had a DSTER meeting here with the folks at the club, and yeah, and they had just found out that they could open up again, so they were excited about that. And and Susan Torso makes a great point about the mental health. They need to get and socialize with each other again. So it's good to see that open. Met with the new Pat McKenna, Habitat for Humanity Executive Director Jeff West, and talked about some things that maybe the town could do with them. And the old fire hall keeps rearing its head, so that was discussed, and it was just basically get to know who he is. And very nice fellow. Had lunch with our MLA Ron and Ray Leonard. There was no agenda. We just wanted to keep open dialogue and chat about some things. With Councillor Kerr, I attended the blessing of the Cypress Gardens lot there, and so that is exciting. That's going to be happening with the community, and good to see the ground turned on it. And the Comox Valley Community Foundation had its grant, what you call it, grant unveiling or so last week, and they awarded, I believe it was $365,000 in various grants to the community. So I just, along with the Mayor Baird, just welcome them and thank them on behalf of the residents of Town Comox. So that's all I had. And for our lone member of public here, do you have any questions for us, Steve?
I just want to thank you all for the work. Everything that's going on, and how you listened as well. It's very exciting. Thank you all.
Oh, good, thanks. All right. Well, and with that, we're going to have to kick you out now because thank you, Steve. Yeah, and so we will you have to move into exclude the public and go in camera.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. So we'll give that a few minutes.